Welcome to our webinar today. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. Maybe if you're on the line, you can unmute yourself and let me know if you can hear me okay. And if you can't unmute yourself, I'll try and unmute you. Or maybe drop a note. Oh, Rachel, you can maybe hear me?
I can hear you, yep.
Great. Welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Thanks.
We'll get started here in just a minute. Okay, like any good teacher or former teacher, I think it's good we get started on time. So thanks for joining us today. It looks like we have Megan and Rachel joining us. And let me tell you who you have on the panel today. And by the way, since we have a fairly small audience, if you have any questions at all along the way, you can, I think I've allowed you to unmute yourself and you can ask any questions you would like to get answered, and and we can take those questions. Let me introduce our panel today. I'm Clark Merkley, the Executive Director of BootUp Professional Development. We also have with us Jack Oligus, who is the Senior Program Manager for Amazon Future Engineer, and you'll get a chance to hear from Jack here in just a few minutes. And then we also have Brenda Bass, who is one of the professional development facilitators at BootUp Professional Development. And Brenda is used to traveling the country and wowing groups of teachers and students with her great facilitation skills. And lately has been doing some of that work from home in some virtual events. And you'll get a chance to hear from Brenda here in a second. So I just want to give those of you joining us today a quick update. If you went to our home site or the BootUp website and clicked on the Amazon Future Engineer BootUp Elementary Computer Science sponsorship page, you may have noticed that we originally had a March 31st deadline for districts around the country to apply for this sponsorship. And with a little thing called a worldwide pandemic, we decided to indefinitely extend that deadline. And so we have begun doing rolling reviews of applications. And so here's a little bit about that. We had a group of districts that applied as of the end of April, and our expert review panel has just completed those reviews, and maybe in the next week or 10 days or so, we'll be announcing districts around the country that were awarded the sponsorship on the first round. But there's still plenty of time to apply. You can even do something very simple like complete the intent to apply that you can find at this this website link here at the AFE BootUp at smaapply.org. So please take a look at that page. On that page also, there are recordings of other webinars that we've done in the past, some of them with school district partners of ours, some with our curriculum director, and some with facilitators. And so there's a kind of a wide variety of things that you can go listen to. And Abby Funabiki has done one on completing the application, and she'll be doing that seminar again a week from today. So if you're interested in doing that. As far as today's session, there is a control panel for each of you. You can ask questions. I've also allowed both of our attendees today to unmute yourself and ask questions anytime along the way that you would like. So please join us. So a little bit about BootUp. We're a national nonprofit. We've been doing our work for about the last 6 years in school districts around the country. And what we do is we provide a series of professional development sessions, and Brenda will talk more about that here in just a few minutes, to take a elementary teacher, and it could be a certified teacher, it could be a specialist or a media tech, and take them from assume that they know very little, if anything, about computer science, coding, computational thinking, and get them up to speed so they become confident and self-efficacious teachers of coding. And so we do that over a series of professional development sessions that are interspersed with the teachers getting an opportunity to put things into practice. So in addition to the professional development, we also provide on-site, and then during times of the pandemic, we will do this virtually as requested by the district. When we come on site, and if students are in session, we also do model teaching, where our facilitator will get up in front of a group of students that teacher has and demonstrate how to facilitate a coding lesson with those students. We provide curriculum, which is the student-facing curriculum is on our website now. You can go take a look at that. As a nonprofit, we made the commitment at our very beginning to make that curriculum available for free, and it will continue to be free. And then we also provide coaching and professional learning community support. We find it's very helpful to get teachers into a PLC that are going through the professional development so they can share ideas. And then another thing that's really critical to what we do is we develop an on-site in-district instructional coach that can lead the training in the future. And we recently partnered with Amazon Future Engineer to bring our skills to districts around the country, and especially serving those that are presently underserved or underrepresented in the field or in college or other places. And our model has been very successful in very large districts, and also districts as small as one elementary school, in helping teachers gain that confidence. So I want to turn a few minutes over to Jack Oligus from Amazon Future Engineer to talk about Amazon Future Engineer and their work.
Thanks so much, Clark. Yeah, I run our elementary programs for Amazon Future Engineer, and our program, we officially launched back in the fall of 2018. And we are a childhood to career program, and we really aim to increase accessibility of computer science education for students, especially those, as Clark mentioned, from underserved and underrepresented communities across the country. So within our program, we work throughout the K through 12 space as well as in the college space. So for our K through 12 space, we really focus on providing computer science education, professional development for teachers, curriculum, and then courses to districts and schools across the U.S. In the college space, we provide 100 students each year with $40,000 scholarships and then an automatic internship at Amazon after their freshman year of college. So we really try and focus on building out our programs that can provide opportunities for students to get inspired in their elementary years and really build those 21st century skills, and then have those avenues available to them to persist in computer science through to a career in the field. We really want students to have the resources available to them to help them build their best futures, whatever they choose for that to be. So we're really super excited to team up with BootUp on our elementary initiative, and hope that we can work with all of you in the future.
Great, thanks, Jack. And Jack will come on a little bit later on and be available to answer any questions you might have. But Amazon's been an amazing partner. They understand kind of what the world's going through and what school districts are dealing with right now, and still making this wonderful opportunity available to school districts around the country. And hopefully, if you haven't yet applied, that you will get an application in for your district. I want to give you a little bit about our philosophy when it comes to elementary students. A lot of times people think, well, you know, IT, computer science, software development is such a hot field. What a great opportunity to teach these kids job skills. Well, those of you that work with elementary students or have elementary students in your own home know that a job or a career is probably the furthest thing from their minds. It might not be far from the parents' minds, but it's the furthest thing from a student's mind. And so our approach is to give students access to this essential literacy. So we view coding as a literacy, just like we teach students to read and write so that they can become literate citizens, not because they're going to become journalists or authors or screenwriters or something like that. And the same thing with mathematics. We want them to develop those critical thinking skills and problem solving skills, and not that they're going to be math teachers or actuaries or go into a field in math. And we view coding the same way. So whether they end up in a technical field, and we do know that we're preparing students for jobs that don't even exist yet. If I'd said artificial intelligence, Bitcoin, blockchain, words like that 10 years ago, people would kind of look at me funny and wonder what I was talking about. Or cybersecurity, now there are tens of thousands of open positions around the country in cybersecurity alone, let alone other technical fields. But when it comes to elementary students, we just want them to gain access to this literacy. We know that computer science has the potential to be transformative in the lives of our students. It teaches them algorithms, or that set of instructions that the computer needs to operate. And when the students start doing coding, they recognize the patterns, and they recognize the procedures that go into coding. And just like a good architect, when she's sitting down to design a new building, will think about what the building is going to look like and how she wants it to function. The students are doing the same thing as they sit down at the beginning of their coding projects, and they're incorporating those design concepts into the project that they want to create. It also enhances a making mindset. Many of the students are doing things in addition to coding, like robotics or other physical computing, or sometimes unplugged activities where they're not even using a device, and engaging in that making mindset, or the critical E in STEM, the engineering component. And what we find is that students really get creative. And our approach to teaching computer science is not as a separate class, not as a job skill, certainly, but really as another form of expression, so that the students can find joy in their work and the joy in the creative process. A good coding classroom, and our coding classrooms, are places that are a place of a lot of buzz and activity. We encourage the students to work together, to share their ideas with others, to even ask their neighbor student for ideas or suggestions on how to solve problems they might be dealing with, rather than going directly to the teacher. And we find all of this really boosts that productive collaboration that we like to see. And we know that this is preparing students for their futures. I love this picture that goes along with this slide, because this is a girl. She's put her own face in an astronaut suit. And this is probably a first grader, because I can see they're working in Scratch Junior. And we know that if the students start when they're very young, that they aren't intimidated by computer science or computational thinking. They love the creative process of coming up with their own projects. And it really is, and this really gets to the essence of the Amazon Future Engineer sponsorship and the districts we're working with, closing those equity gaps that exist around the country, giving students of every background and every class and everyone an access to a quality experience where they're learning how to code and learning to understand the digital world around them. And we know, because we see it in all of our classrooms, when students are able to do this, it helps them to gain confidence, not only in their own skills, but helps them see possibilities beyond their own. And then that last point there, developing a growth mindset and persistence. One of the key aspects of coding or computer programming is the concept of debugging. And students learn that the project or the code never works. I used to say almost never, but it never works exactly the way that you originally set out to do it. And so it requires the students to evaluate their work and go back and fix things that need to be fixed, and tweak something to work better. And we get a real kick out of when the students make that translation of persistence and stick-to-itiveness in other subjects. So if they can take that same kind of persistence and grit into mathematics and other subject areas, that's when it really gets exciting. So I want to turn some time now over to Brenda Bass, who is one of our professional development facilitators, and have her talk a little bit about a component of her work, and she'll be available to answer any other questions that you might have about the work of our facilitators. So Brenda, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you very much, Clark. One of the other things I would like to add to your list is, coding is just fun. It's been really fun for me to go into buildings, and when the kids see me in the hall, they get so excited. They're like, I remember you. You were the Scratch Cat lady, or you taught us coding. So that's been a lot of fun. So in addition to our on-site professional development that another facilitator, McKay, spoke about in another webinar, we also do site visits. Now, the first on-site visit, the BootUp facilitator goes into the classroom and models a BootUp lesson from our free curriculum with that teacher's student. This is a great way for them to see how to teach a computer coding lesson in their classroom with their students. On our visits after that, about a week before the facilitators in that district, we send out a sign-up sheet to the district so teachers can sign up for a day and time that they want us to come in and model a lesson. This could be a BootUp lesson, or it could be an integration lesson that goes along with something that they're teaching at the time. Now, one of my favorite quotes from a librarian just recently was, "You didn't give a whole lot of information at the beginning of the class. I would have talked way too much." I told her that a long time ago I learned with students, sometimes a little goes a long ways. All right, would you go to the next slide, please, sir? This next one, Scratch Junior is a free app for the iPad, Chromebook, tablet, and now there's a desktop beta version as well. We use Scratch Junior for our pre-K through 2nd grade. It has 4 different pages or scenes, so it's great for fat families or even creating stories with first, next, then, last. This particular example is from a 2nd grade class that's been writing a story about spiders. They had to have a topic sentence and 2-star ideas with supporting details and a conclusion. So I modeled a lesson using Scratch Junior where students had to use the paint editor and draw their spider. They had to use the text feature to type their story and coded it. So would you click on the little video and so you can see the little spider they drew. So then it just kind of goes through their story. So this was fun because we had several students that hadn't finished the pre-writing portion of it. And so they got to code part of it. And then the teacher was like, okay, now you need to go finish the rest of your story. So it was kind of a little bit of a motivation for them to go finish their story before they got to code the rest of it. All right, so the next slide, please. So Scratch is a free web-based block coding platform that we use for 3rd grade and up. This is a project from a 4th grade teacher that she created or started working on during our PD in February. She didn't quite get it finished and had some bugs in it. So the next day she went back to her class and she had the class help her, and they all problem solved and kind of created this project. So this is on prime and composite numbers. So I don't know if you can hear the sound. It has sound, and so if you get it right, it has a pleasant sound. If you get it wrong, it kind of has a gong sound. So what they're doing is they're trying to find either the prime or composite number. All right, the next slide, please, sir. So this particular project was created by 6th grade, and it was created in Scratch. All the images and information came from Fact Monster. We also teach how to find copyright-friendly images and how to cite sources, as well as digital citizenship. All right, if you'll just play the little sample video there. That was a lot of fun. One little boy, or I guess he wasn't so little, he was taller than I was, but he was so excited because he figured out how to do the text to speech. And then another one put President Donald Trump as the sprite walking through. So they were pretty creative there. All right, so the next slide. So this particular project was created by a 3rd grade class. Now they only had iPads, and they wanted to show several different shapes, polygons, and so they wanted to use the arrow keys, but they didn't have a keyboard for their iPad. So we had to kind of come up with a kind of a workaround. So I had them use the arrow keys as the sprite, and then we just used the coding blocks, the broadcast and receive message, send and receive message to make that work. So this particular code right here just shows that when I receive the right arrow key, it's going to erase what's on the screen, and then it's going to put the pen down, and it's going to start drawing. So it's going to repeat 3 times and just move 100 spaces and then turn 120 degrees. So whenever students were figuring out their shapes, they had to take 360 and divide it by however many sides their shape had. So a lot was involved in that, and they did a great job with this project. All right, so the next slide. So after we do model teaching, we move to peer observations. The BootUp Facilitator and instructional coach for that district look for teachers that are comfortable and doing a good job of teaching coding, and ask if they would teach a computer coding lesson for their peers to watch. This really helps with teachers that have been reluctant to try coding with their own students to see one of their colleagues teaching. Some of our districts now have trouble getting substitute teachers, so we can offer to video our lessons or another teacher teaching, of course with their permission, to share it with the district in their shared drive for their teachers to watch at their own convenience. All right, the next slide, please. So then, after peer coaching, we move to peer observation. The BootUp, okay, hang on, wait a minute, sorry, on the wrong slide there. So peer coaching is next. Peer coaching is when we get a group of small teachers, maybe 4 to 6, and they get a substitute teacher, and they travel from different schools, each schools. So the substitute teacher, when we get to that school, they sit down and the teacher teaches like a 30-minute lesson with their class. This is non-evaluative and helps build community between teachers. Teachers often gain other strategies as well, such as classroom management and procedures that they can take back to their classroom. Now, before the teacher teaches the lesson, we have a pre-conference, and we kind of discuss what we're going to see. And also we ask, do you want us to help with the students, or you want just us to watch? After the lesson, we have a post-conference, and this is where the teacher reflects what went well, and then everyone offers positive feedback from the lesson. Now, again, some districts can't get substitute teachers except for the PD training. So we do work with that district and we can video our lessons or whatever. So we can make it work, and we try to tailor it for each district there.
Okay. Anything else, Brenda, that and you'd like to share?
I think that's all I have.
Okay. I'm going to bring Abby Funabiki on. She is the Associate Executive Director for BootUp Professional Development, and she has been leading the collection of applications from districts around the country. And so, Abby, if you want to maybe respond to any questions that have come up in the chat, because I haven't been watching it, or in the Q&A section, and then maybe talk about the application process itself.
Hi there. Looks like we don't have any questions yet, but if you do have any, especially about the application, please do unmute yourself or go ahead and enter them in the chat. We'll go ahead and put some links to the application here. And as Clark mentioned earlier, I'll be doing a webinar like this next week where we'll walk through the application questions, the 5 short narrative questions. And in my opinion, if you go through that webinar, you've answered all the questions for your application and ready to submit.
So those that are working on applications, please see if you can join us next week for Abby's presentation, kind of walk through that. As you'll notice, if you haven't been there yet, it's intended to be very straightforward and easy. We collect some demographic information about your school district, and then some open text boxes where you can describe what it is you have in mind as far as your implementation plan. So I've unmuted, or at least I've allowed all of you to talk and ask questions if you'd like. So if you have specific questions about your district, if you just want to introduce yourself, we'd love to have you jump in. I can see Kevin's joined us, and Kevin's we'll call Kevin a friend of the family. He's been familiar with BootUp and our work. Welcome, Kevin.
Hey, thank you. Calling me a friend of the family. That's awesome.
Yeah, Kevin's a teacher who's been doing some great work in elementary classrooms already. So Megan, Rachel, any questions that you've got, you can just unmute yourself and fire away. And it's just a small group of us, so don't be afraid to ask whatever questions you might have. Or maybe go ahead, Rachel, please.
This is Rachel. So I'm in Pennsylvania. I don't know where you folks are located, but in our state, they've been they have an initiative called the PA Smart Grants. So our school was able to get one this past school year, and the whole focus of the grant is to create a plan and get the materials and the devices and things needed to implement computer science. Because Pennsylvania is going to adopt the CSTA standards eventually. So I was just curious if you had worked with any of the schools in Pennsylvania that have been a part of that PA Smart grant process, or if you're aware of that, and maybe how there's some overlap, or how this piece, the BootUp piece, could be used to create the kind of professional development and the plans needed to execute that grant.
Yeah, and by the way, Rachel, I tell everybody I did not pay you to ask that question. This was a real question. We reached out to every district in Pennsylvania when the PA Smart Grants came out to see if they would be interested in having us do some professional development, because one of the things that we know from our work around the country is that there's some great curriculum out there, including our very own curriculum that teachers can access. But a lot of times it takes a good qualified facilitator like Brenda and our other facilitators to actually help the teachers, get through that content and know what to do and how to teach it. So we would, if you've already got PA Smart grant money and would like to have us come out to your district and do some work, we'd be, more than happy to do that. You can just contact us. The difference between, you know, a PA Smart Grant and what we're talking about now with our sponsorship program with Amazon Future Engineer is that because of that sponsorship, we're able to bring our services to districts at no cost to the district. And so that's been very appealing for those districts that typically have, you know, very tight budgets and are trying to find really great programs to bring to their elementary students in particular that can't do it. And so under the sponsorship with Amazon, our services are come at no charge for 3 years. So it's a 3-year implementation to work with each district that we're signed to work with. And it really helps the teachers get up to speed and confident and what we call self-efficacious, which means once they've had that training, they can draw from resources all over, you know, whether it's code.org or Khan Academy or robotics curriculum or whatever. And then, of course, our lessons are always available, and there's enough there to keep somebody busy for years. So yes, we're very familiar with the PA Smart Grant, and which district are you in?
I'm in a district called Southern Tioga School District. We're rural, north central part of the state. So
okay,
yeah, we're a large geographic district, but you know, small population.
Yeah, up there in the rolling hills part of Pennsylvania.
Yes, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But and you're exactly right. I mean, I'm the gifted teacher in our entire district, and but I also serve as an instructional coach, and my key focus has been computer science over the last 2 years. And I think, you know, I sit on our team, you know, for the PA Smart Grant, and out of all the discussions we've had, we've been struggling to come up with the list of, you know, quote unquote things we need to buy. And all of our discussions just lead to, we just need more professional development. We just need more opportunities for our teachers to, you know, to learn and to practice, you know, and to feel comfortable with integrating computer science in their classes. You know, and I've had great success with teachers welcoming me into their room so that I can teach a lesson, but then, you know, kind of bridging that next step of, okay, now you can teach it, and how do we incorporate it into your content that you're already teaching and that you're super comfortable with. And so I think it, just from the perspective of somebody who's been trying to do it, I feel like it takes that structure and kind of that formality that maybe you guys bring to the table of that this is a program and we're committed to it, and, you know, you're not going to just blow it off type of thing, you know, so.
Yeah. So maybe Brenda, can you talk a little bit about, you know, what you've seen? Because one of the key things, and I maybe kind of skipped over this too quickly, is we work with districts because we want your superintendent and curriculum director to be on board and supportive. We want the building level principals to be supportive, and not only supportive, but, you know, have expectations that the teachers will do this. And so that shared accountability model really helps, because the teachers know, okay, you're asking me to do something that I don't really feel comfortable with at all, but you're giving me the support. Now you're giving me the professional development. You're paying for the substitutes, whatever it is, to make sure that I feel comfortable gaining these skills. And so Brenda, talk a little bit about that, and then talk about integration, which is sort of one of the key buzzwords right now.
Yes. So I think one of the things that makes BootUp successful is we partner with your district long term. So our PD consists of 8 different PD sessions. So I'll go in a district and do a PD, and then about in a month and a half or 2 months later, I come back. So I always kind of laugh and tell teachers I'm kind of like that nagging code that never goes away. You know, I just keep coming back and coming back. But what we do in our professional development is 90% of it is hands-on. You're building, and what we want to do is we want to show you concepts, those computer science concepts and skills, and we show you different examples. We show you the BootUp preview of the lesson. We show you an integration idea, if possible, and then we let teachers take it and kind of adapt it to their curriculum. So they're getting that time in the professional development that teachers don't have to do it outside of time, which we know. And so I think that's one of the things that makes our professional development powerful is they get to continually build these projects for their classrooms and then when they see it. And so we work with an instructional coach as well. And so we start kind of doing a gradual release to the instructional coach for the district. And so they start co-facilitating with us with the third or fourth PD. And then eventually they'll be running the whole PDs when, BootUp's not there anymore. But
yeah, it sounds like a powerful model, and I think you're right that the commitment piece to it has to be key, that a district is committing to this initiative for 3 years. It's not just something that we hold one PD session and then we kind of all forget about it. So
yeah, it's not a one and done
yeah
deal. One of the things that I always get questions of, what physical devices do we have to have? You do not have to have anything. We use Scratch Junior and Scratch. Those are the platforms that we've chosen, and basically they're free. And introducing students to block coding will allow you to introduce JavaScript and Python and some of the other languages later on down the line. But it's just a great way to start. Now, do we think every student is going to go in and be a programmer later on? No, but we're seeing a lot of the skills like the problem solving, the creativity, the debugging, all of these different components carry over. I've been in Iowa at a district for 2 years, and it's really exciting to see what the kids are doing, and the teachers are like, wow, they can do so much more now. I've got to really bump up my game because I was thinking, so it's been really fun to see the progression there.
Yeah, and when it comes to integration, one of the, a lot of districts talk about it like, let's integrate computer science and computational thinking across the curriculum. But it's really hard to ask teachers to do that if they don't know the basics of how to do coding and computer science. And so once they've got that confidence, then it's easy for them to say, okay, now we're doing language arts and we're reading a new book. Well, I can give the students a coding project instead of a book report to tell me what they've learned, to have me assess their spelling and grammar and usage. Can they, follow the plot and the characters? And, that when that integration happens from the teachers themselves, that's when it gets really exciting. And Brenda mentioned Iowa. They did the bottles filled with corn that they decorated up like historical characters. And so that was one expression. And then they dressed like the characters, but then they also did a coding project about each of those historical characters. And so that was one of the, it was one of the highlights of my last year, just seeing those projects that the students were sharing with their parents and the community.
And what was kind of interesting about that is the teacher that did that with her class, she was one of the ones that came to the very first training that we had. And she was like thinking, oh, this is just one more thing the district is adding to our plate. I don't know how I'm going to get this done. What are we even doing here? And then by the end of the year, she even used, they have buddies, different grade levels for reading that they pair up with. And so she used her 5th grade reading buddies because they did not have the devices at the beginning of last year to use Scratch. So we did Scratch Junior with 3rd grade. Then she wanted to do this, and I said, well, we really need to move to Scratch. And so they received Chromebooks at the semester. So we switched over 3rd grade or her class to Scratch from Scratch Junior. So her 5th grade buddies come in and kind of taught the 3rd graders Scratch. And so it was just very, very powerful all the way around. And then they set it up in the gym, and they had kind of like a living museum.
I have my hand raised.
Go ahead, Kevin.
She basically started speaking to where my question was going to be going towards. For some districts, like even in this coronavirus, people have sent home packets for the lower grades because they haven't moved to a one-to-one situation where students have access, and they're still using like a computer lab model. And I was wondering, how does that affect, because a lot of the lower grades, how does that affect if you're using a computer lab? Well, basically one teacher who's responsible for teaching technology, and classes come to them at various times throughout the week. How does that affect training the whole school if I am a teacher who just send my kids to computer lab? You get what I'm trying to say? And I don't have to do it in my room because I'm just send them to the computer lab.
Yeah, we have all sorts of different scenarios. We have librarians that we're training, so they do it in the library, and we I kind of encourage them to do like stations if they can't do whole group, because in the library they have to check out books and they have other things as well. So we there's like scratch cards, and there's all sorts of different ideas that you could do with stations. We do work with technology facilitators in the computer lab. A lot of our schools have like 6 devices in their classroom. And so one of the things that I try to suggest is if they can borrow some devices from their coworkers. And we love pair programming. So, if we could put even 2 students per device, then that collaboration is really, really powerful. We do something where we call it a driver and a navigator. The driver is the one that gets the device, and the navigator I call the boss. They're the ones that's going to help kind of drive the driver. They can't touch the device, but they're offering suggestions and telling them how to code and do different things. And then we switch roles. So each of those students have a chance to be the driver and the navigator. Now, I actually did this in Denver with a Montessori kindergarten class, and I had them facing each other. And so when the navigator was giving directions, they were pointing right. Well, that was really to their other person's left because they were mirrored. And they were like going, no, the other right, the other right. So that was kind of funny. But hopefully I answered your question, Kevin.
Also, Kevin, one recommendation we give is that if possible, if the classroom teacher can attend their students, if they can stick around instead of just dropping them off in the computer lab or the library, they actually learn how to take what the students are learning back into their classroom. And so that's another way we try and get computer science sort of across the entire school, instead of just, I'm sending them to computer lab, which is a totally separate subject.
Yes, thank you.
And that has to come from the administration, who is going to be teaching it. But one of the things that I think makes it powerful is if you can train all teachers. If you have a teacher that leaves, then you can go ahead and continue your program. If you're only training like the tech facilitator, if that tech facilitator leaves, then you've got to start over with the training and train somebody else to get it in there to continue your program.
I guess the other thing I was wondering, like as far as the grant or giving advice on trying to get more districts to become like one-to-one or to get the technology into the rooms, I was wondering if there's any information out there that would be shared as well.
This grant doesn't cover devices and things like that, but what we find is if we can provide our professional development under this sponsorship with Amazon at no charge, then there's other places that districts can go for devices. And sometimes it's even something like Donors Choose, where an individual teacher gets a classroom set, or the district foundation or other places, or sometimes like Rachel was talking about, the PA Smart grant in Pennsylvania. I know that some of those allow for the purchase of additional devices if the schools don't have them. So even though we don't have access to those funds, we can certainly find resources and point districts to those.
And one of the things that I was pretty successful in when I was teaching is whenever I received a grant, I would work with our PTA or your PTO, and a lot of times they would match the grants. And so you kind of stretched your dollar there a little bit further.
Yes, thank you.
And Megan, I don't want to call you out into the open, but I know you're in the Peoria district down in Arizona, and that's a great place for us. Our curriculum director actually used to be a teacher in the Avondale district and lives in Tolleson. And we just hired a new facilitator who lives in Anthem. So we know your area of the country well. Any questions that you have for us?
I don't have any questions as of right now. I'm just a teacher, but I'm gonna definitely share this with my IT department, and because I love that it's not buying a new or the new and greatest like little tech device. It's just a program to really get teachers exploring into the program and help them with the teaching of it. So I'm really excited about it. I'm just gonna share it with my my tech department.
Excellent. Well, and you don't have to ever apologize for being, quote, just a teacher with us. We're all teachers or former teachers, and we love teachers. So
Yeah.
the greatest profession in the world. If anyone else has any other questions, we'd love to entertain those. We encourage you. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned at the outset, and I think Abby put it in the chat. This session today is being recorded, so we'll send you the link to the recording, or you can find it on our page. And then if you want to share it with your colleagues or an administrator or someone that might help you prepare a grant application for your district, that would be great. And then all the other recordings are there for you to listen to. A lot of them are fairly similar, but you might want to watch one that either has a school district partner on it, or Abby talking about the application, or maybe McKay talking about professional development. There's a lot of resources for you to take a look at. Jack, any other parting thoughts? Or
I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. And also, I'd like to say it looks very interesting. And if it does get accomplished and spread, it's going to put a lot of pressure on what's next once I do get to 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, on what the students will be able to access, because it looks like they're going to get a strong foundation if they do get started at this early age of kindergarten.
Well, another reason to have the district administration in on this, because you're exactly right, Kevin. When the students can code from the time that they're pre-K or kindergarten through 6th grade, you really have to change what you're going to offer in junior high as an elective class, because you go in assuming the kids don't have any background, and let's start out with scratch, and they're already experts. So it's a good problem to have, and different districts have addressed it in different ways. But it's a good problem to have, because what we see in the districts that have been doing this for a long time, which is really encouraging, is more girls taking computer science as an elective, and more students of color that otherwise wouldn't be there or taking those elective classes. They're saying, wait, I can do this and I'm good at it. And I love it. And it's fun, like Brenda said. And so it's a good problem for school districts to have have more advanced offerings for their students.
Yeah, and just to jump in on that, as I mentioned earlier in the call as well, obviously we're super excited about being able to offer these elementary programs, but we do also offer support for middle and high school levels, and then scholarships and internships too. So if you go to our website, amazonfutureengineer.com, you can learn a little bit more about, how you can create that pathway for your students. So, starting in the elementary years with BootUp, and then also having our other offerings available there for your students to continue along in their computer science journey.
All right. Well, let's see. Yep, and it looks like in the chat box, Abby's put the links to those things for you to go find some resources. But we appreciate you spending a few minutes of your Friday morning or early afternoon with us. We hope that you've learned something, and we appreciate you spending some time with us. So have a great rest of your day and a wonderful weekend. And if you want to follow up on the recording, that should be available later today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And bye to everyone.
All right,
Bye.
thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you.